The apple pie was perfect. Golden crust, cinnamon filling bubbling just right through the decorative slits I'd spent 20 minutes perfecting. My grandmother's recipe, the one that had won 3 county fair blue ribbons back in Ohio. Tonight felt special enough for blue ribbon pie. I smoothed my navy dress one more time, the one Michael said looked good on me, the one that didn't cling too much, didn't show too much, didn't make me look like I was trying too hard. I'd learned his preferences by now, after 2 years together. Keep it simple, keep it modest, keep it Sarah. Through the kitchen doorway, I could hear the warm buzz of conversation from the dining room. Both our families finally meeting, finally celebrating our engagement properly. My mom's nervous laugh mixing with Michael's father's booming voice, discussing wedding venues and guest lists. This was supposed to be our night, our beginning. I lifted the pie from the cooling rack, inhaling that perfect blend of butter and spice. This was what love looked like, wasn't it? Homemade dessert, family gathered around our table, planning a future together. I'd been dreaming of moments like this since I was 12, reading romance novels under my bedroom covers. The dining room had gone quieter. Maybe they were getting tired. It was past 9, and Michael's parents had driven 3 hours from Connecticut. I should bring out the pie soon, get the coffee started, be the perfect hostess, the perfect fiancé. I picked up the dessert plates from the counter, balanced them carefully in one hand, while I reached for the pie server with the other. That's when I heard Michael's voice, lower than usual, coming from the hallway between the kitchen and dining room. He was talking to Jake, his best friend since college, his chosen best man. They must have stepped away from the table, probably heading to the bathroom. I paused, not wanting to interrupt, holding my breath so I could time my entrance perfectly. Always timing, always calculating, always trying to be perfect. That's when the words hit me like ice water. Honestly, man, she's too fat to be my wife. I don't know what I was thinking. The plates trembled in my hands. The pie server clattered against the ceramic. My heart stopped, restarted, then began hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Dude, seriously? Jake's voice was uncomfortable, awkward. I mean, look at her, and look at the women we used to date in college. Remember Ashley? God, Ashley was perfect. Size 2 could wear anything. Michael's voice was getting quieter, but every word was carving itself into my memory. Sarah's sweet, don't get me wrong. She takes care of everything, does whatever I want, never complains. But physically, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was hearing. So why'd you propose? Jake asked. She's safe, you know? She'll never leave me, never cheat, never cause problems. She worships me. And honestly, I figured I could work on the weight thing after we got married. Get her a trainer, put her on some kind of program. The pie was still warm in my hands. The pie I'd made from scratch, measuring each ingredient twice, rolling the dough until my arms ached. The pie meant to celebrate our love, our future, our life together. Plus, she makes good money as a nurse. Stable job, good insurance, and she'll be an amazing mom someday, once we get her body situation figured out. My body situation. I set the pie down on the counter with surgical precision, the way I handled medications at the hospital. Steady hands, even when everything inside was chaos. 26 years old, and I was someone's body situation. The conversation was moving away, their voices fading as they returned to the dining room. I heard chairs scraping, my father asking if anyone wanted more wine, my mother complimenting the pot roast I'd spent all afternoon preparing. I stared at my reflection in the kitchen window, seeing what Michael saw. The round face, the soft arms, the body that wasn't a size 2, would never be a size 2, had never been a size 2 even when I was running track in high school. But for 2 years he'd held my hand in public, kissed me goodnight, told me he loved me, asked me to marry him on bended knee in Central Park, with tourists watching and taking pictures. Had that all been performance? Had I been some kind of consolation prize? Sarah, honey, where's that famous pie? My mother's voice drifted from the dining room, cheerful and expectant. I picked up the pie again, walked toward the dining room with the same smile I'd been wearing all evening. The same smile I wore at work when difficult patients complained. The same smile I wore when Michael suggested I skip dessert. The same smile I'd perfected over years of being the good girl, the accommodating one, the one who never caused problems. Here it comes, I announced brightly, setting the pie in the center of the table. Everyone oohed and awed appropriately. Michael's mother asked for the recipe. My dad made a joke about having to loosen his belt. Michael smiled at me, the same smile he'd worn when he proposed, when he'd slipped the ring onto my finger and whispered that I made him the happiest man alive. But now I knew what that smile meant. Now I understood what I was looking at. I cut perfect slices, served everyone with precision, accepted compliments graciously. And while I did all of this, while I played the perfect hostess, a different kind of silence was growing inside me. Not the silence of hurt feelings or wounded pride. Not the silence of someone waiting to be rescued or fixed. The silence of someone who was finally, fully awake. The silence of someone who was beginning to plan. The wedding dress hung like a ghost in my closet. Ivory silk, size 14, ordered 3 months ago when I still believed in fairy tales. Now it mocked me every morning as I reached for my scrubs, a daily reminder of the woman I thought I was becoming. It had been 4 days since the dinner. 4 days of acting normal while my world cracked open like an eggshell. Michael hadn't noticed anything different. Why would he? In his mind, I was still the same grateful, accommodating Sarah who would never cause problems. But I was different. Every conversation felt like I was watching it through glass, analyzing his words for hidden meanings, searching for clues I'd missed before. And God, there were so many clues. Maybe skip the hash browns today, babe. He said that Tuesday morning, reaching across me to grab his coffee. His hand brushed against my hip, and I felt him pause, just for a second, like he was measuring something. Summer's coming, you know? Before the dinner, I would have laughed it off, maybe made a joke about beach season. Now I heard the calculation in his voice, saw the way his eyes flickered down my body like he was taking inventory of problems to fix. Of course, I said, pushing the potatoes toward him instead. You have them. He smiled that same smile, the one I used to think meant love. That's why you're perfect for me, Sarah. You always understand. Perfect for him. Not perfect, period. Perfect for him, like a tool that served its purpose. At the hospital that afternoon, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror between patients, staring at my reflection with new eyes. Was I really that different from the women he used to date? I pulled up his Instagram, scrolled back through years of photos I'd never bothered to examine closely before. Ashley, brunette, tiny, wearing a bikini in Cabo. Her waist was the size of my thigh. Melissa, blonde, angular, cocktail dress that cost more than my monthly rent. Rebecca, redhead, model thin, posed like she was auditioning for magazines. Then me, always photographed from specific angles, carefully chosen outfits, never in a bikini, never in anything that showed too much truth. Even in our engagement photos, he'd positioned me behind him, his body blocking parts of mine from the camera. Had I really been so blind? Sarah, you okay? Jennifer, my charge nurse, appeared beside me in the mirror. You've been quiet today. I almost told her. The words were right there, burning in my throat. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was strategy. Maybe it was the growing certainty that I needed to handle this myself. Just wedding stress, I said instead, which wasn't entirely a lie. You know how it is. She laughed sympathetically. Girl, I remember. 6 months before my wedding, I was a complete mess. But it's worth it when you find the right one. The right one. I excused myself and walked to the supply closet, needing somewhere dark and quiet to think. In the confined space, surrounded by gauze and medical tape, I finally let myself feel the full weight of what I'd learned. He didn't love me. Maybe he never had. I was a consolation prize, a safe bet, a problem to be managed after marriage. That evening, Michael suggested we go wedding dress shopping again. I was thinking maybe we should look at some different styles, he said, not looking up from his laptop. Something more flattering, you know? More flattering. Code for hiding my body situation. What's wrong with the one I ordered? Nothing. Nothing's wrong with it. I just think we could find something that makes you look even more beautiful. He reached over and squeezed my hand, and I had to fight not to pull away. Trust me on this one. So I found myself back in the bridal salon, standing on the pedestal while he and the consultant discussed my body like I wasn't in the room. Something with more structure in the bodice, he suggested. Maybe a fuller skirt to balance things out. Balance things out. I stared at myself in the three-way mirror, seeing what he saw. The woman who needed to be balanced, structured, managed. The woman whose body was a problem to be solved. But here's what he didn't see. The way I'd been memorizing every comment, every suggestion, every small cruelty disguised as concern. The way I'd started screenshotting his text messages about wedding planning, about my appearance, about what I should and shouldn't eat. The way I'd been researching wedding cancellation policies. "This one's nice," the consultant said, bringing out a dress with enough fabric to hide an army. Very forgiving through the midsection. Forgiving. As if my body was a sin that needed absolution. I tried on the dress, stood on the pedestal, let them discuss my flaws and how to camouflage them. And while I stood there, being managed and optimized and balanced, I was making my own plans. Plans that had nothing to do with walking down any aisle. "What do you think, sweetheart?" Michael asked, and I realized they'd been talking to me. "It's perfect," I said, giving them the smile they expected. Absolutely perfect. But I wasn't talking about the dress. I was talking about the moment when he'd finally understand what he'd lost. When he'd realized that the woman he thought was too grateful to leave, too accommodating to fight back, too fat to have options, had been listening all along. I was talking about justice. Cold, calculated, and absolutely devastating. Just the way he'd taught me it should be. His phone buzzed while he was in the shower. 3 times, then silence. I was folding laundry on the bed, sorting his shirts from mine, when the screen lit up again. A text from Jake. "Dude, delete those photos from last night before Sarah sees them." My hand stilled on Michael's blue Oxford shirt, the one I'd ironed yesterday morning before my shift, the one that made his eyes look bluer, according to the compliment I'd given him just 24 hours ago, when I still believed our relationship was real. The phone was right there, face up on the nightstand. No password protection because we trust each other completely, as he'd always said. Trust. The word tasted bitter now. I could hear him singing off-key in the shower, some old college song about being young and free. The sound that used to make me smile now made my stomach clench. How long did I have? 5 minutes? 10? I picked up the phone. The group chat was called The Boys. Michael, Jake, his college roommate David, and 2 other friends I'd met at various barbecues and birthday parties. Guys who'd always been polite to my face, who'd hugged me hello and asked about my job and complimented my potato salad. I scrolled up, my heart hammering as the messages loaded. At first it was normal stuff. Plans for golf, complaints about work, sports arguments. Then I found the photos from last weekend. Photos of me at the engagement party I didn't even know had been taken. Me reaching for more wine. The angle making my arms look huge. Me laughing at someone's joke, my double chin visible. Me hugging Michael's aunt, my dress tight across my back. The captions made me physically sick. "Bro, you're really going through with this?" David had written under the worst one. Michael's response, "She's got other qualities. Trust me, it's not about looks anymore at our age." Jake, "Dude, remember when you said you'd never settle?" Michael, "Sometimes you gotta be practical. She worships me, dude. Do you know how rare that is? Plus, nurse salary, good insurance. She'll make a great mom once we get her on a diet plan." I sat down hard on the bed, the phone shaking in my hands. There was more, so much more. Screenshots they'd shared from my Facebook, making jokes about my beach vacation photos. A poll David had created. Over/under on how long before Mike finds a side piece. Betting odds on whether I'd lose weight before the wedding. The worst part wasn't the cruelty. It was the casualness of it. The easy assumption that I'd never see these messages, never fight back, never leave. The absolute confidence that I was trapped by my own gratitude and insecurity. "She's not going anywhere," Michael had written just 3 days ago. "Where else is she gonna find someone like me? She knows she got lucky. Lucky. I was lucky to be insulted and humiliated and treated like a participation trophy." The shower turned off. I quickly scrolled to the most recent messages, screenshotting everything, my fingers moving with surgical precision. Send to email. Delete from phone. Clear recently deleted. Evidence preserved. Tracks covered. "Hey babe, what's for breakfast?" Michael emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, still humming. He looked so normal, so innocent. The same face that had told me he loved me, that had looked into my eyes when he proposed. "Whatever you want," I said, setting his phone back exactly where I'd found it. He kissed the top of my head as he passed, and I had to grip the bedsheets to keep from recoiling. "You're the best, Sarah. I don't know what I did to deserve you." I knew exactly what he'd done. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. While he got dressed, I went to the kitchen and made his favorite breakfast. blueberry pancakes, turkey bacon, fresh orange juice. I set the table with the good placemats, the ones his mother had given us for Christmas. I even put a flower from our windowsill garden in a little vase. Perfect girlfriend behavior. Exactly what he expected. But inside, I was burning. At work that afternoon, I sat in my car during lunch break, reading through the screenshots I'd saved. Each message was another nail in the coffin of whatever we'd had, or whatever I'd thought we'd had. The cruelest part was how obvious it all was now. Every time he'd suggested I might want to think about joining a gym. Every time he'd ordered for me at restaurants, choosing salads when I wanted pasta. Every time he'd positioned me just so in photos, his arm strategically placed to hide parts of my body. Every time I'd thanked him for loving me despite my flaws, he'd been thinking about how to fix those flaws. My phone buzzed. A text from him. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Love. Another word that meant nothing coming from him. But this gave me time. Time to think, to plan, to prepare for what came next. I drove to the public library after work, used their computers to research wedding cancellation policies, vendor contracts, venue deposits. I printed everything, paying cash so there was no digital trail. Then I went home and cooked his favorite dinner, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, homemade rolls, chocolate cake for dessert, the kind of meal that said, "I love you" in every carefully prepared bite. When he came home at midnight, claiming he'd been at the office, I didn't ask about the perfume I smelled, or the lipstick stain on his collar that he'd tried to wipe off. I just smiled and heated up his plate. "You're amazing, Sarah," he said, eating the meal I'd prepared. Seriously, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I watched him eat, watched him lie to my face with such casual confidence, and felt something crystallize inside me, something cold and sharp and utterly final. He thought he was lucky. He thought he'd won. He had no idea what was coming. The rehearsal dinner was perfect. White tablecloths, flickering candles, the smell of roasted chicken and rosemary filling the private dining room at Riverside Manor. Both families mingling, sharing stories, toasting our future. Michael's college friends had flown in from different states, all suits and fake smiles, the same men who'd spent months mocking me in their group chat. I moved through the evening like a ghost at my own funeral, accepting hugs, thanking people for coming, playing the glowing bride-to-be with Oscar-worthy precision. 2 days until the wedding that would never happen, but only I knew that. "Sarah, honey, you look radiant." Michael's mother squeezed my hand across the table. "I've never seen my son so happy." Happy. I glanced at Michael, who was laughing with Jake about some story from their bachelor party last weekend. The bachelor party where, according to the messages I'd screenshotted, they'd discussed how much weight I might gain after marriage, and whether Michael would need to start looking elsewhere for physical satisfaction. "Thank you, Mrs. Coleman. That means everything to me." She beamed. This woman who'd raised a son to view love as a business transaction, who'd taught him that women were problems to be managed rather than people to be cherished. The waiters cleared the main course. Time for speeches. Michael's father went first, talking about legacy and family traditions. My dad followed, getting emotional about his little girl growing up. Sweet, genuine words that made my chest ache because they were based on a lie. Then, Michael stood up, tapping his glass with that confident smile I'd once found irresistible. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began, his hand resting possessively on my shoulder. "Sarah and I are so grateful to have your support as we start this new chapter. Grateful, Sarah. Always grateful, never questioning, never expecting too much. When I first met Sarah, I knew she was special. She's caring, she's dedicated, she puts everyone else's needs first." He squeezed my shoulder and I felt the familiar weight of his expectations. "She's going to make an amazing wife and mother." The room erupted in gentle applause. I smiled up at him, the picture of adoring devotion. While inside, I counted down the seconds until my turn. Michael sat down, kissing my temple in that performative way he'd perfected for public displays. Show the world how much he loved me, how lucky I was to have him. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress, the navy one he'd specifically requested because it was flattering. The room settled into expectant silence. 68 people, all watching me with warm anticipation. "Thank you all so much for being here," I began, my voice steady and sweet. "This means more to me than you'll ever know." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I thought it would be fun to share some of our favorite moments together. a little slideshow of our love story. I'd spent weeks preparing this presentation, choosing each screenshot with surgical precision. The dining room had a large screen for exactly this kind of thing. Modern venues always did. "Let's start with how we met," I said, connecting my phone to the display. The first slide appeared, a photo of us from our second date, both of us laughing over dinner. We looked genuinely happy. Maybe we had been, before I understood what his version of love actually meant. "Michael was so charming," I continued, advancing to the next slide. "He always knew exactly what to say." This slide showed a text message thread. Michael telling me I was beautiful, that he couldn't wait to see me again, that I made him feel like the luckiest man alive. The room made appreciative sounds. How romantic. "And he was always so thoughtful about my appearance," I said, clicking forward, "always helping me look my best." The new slide showed a different conversation. Michael suggesting I might want to think about skipping dessert, recommending a gym membership for Christmas, asking if I was sure about the dress I'd chosen for his company party. The room grew quieter. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. "He was also incredibly honest with his friends about our relationship," I continued, my voice never wavering from that sweet, grateful tone. "He shared everything with them." Click. The group chat messages appeared. Michael's words in their full, casual cruelty. "She's too fat to be my wife." I don't know what I was thinking. Audible gasps echoed through the room. Michael's face went white, then red, then white again. "Here's my personal favorite," I said, advancing to the next slide. More messages. The betting pool about my weight loss. The jokes about my body. The poll about when he'd start cheating. "Michael, what is this?" His mother's voice cut through the stunned silence. I kept clicking. Photo after photo of their mockery. Screenshot after screenshot of their casual dehumanization. Every cruel joke. Every calculated insult. Every moment when they'd treated me like a punchline rather than a person. "And here's the most recent conversation," I said, reaching the final slide. "From just last week." Michael's text to Jake. "She's not going anywhere. Where else is she gonna find someone like me? She knows she got lucky." The silence in the room was deafening. 68 people staring at evidence of systematic emotional abuse, watching a man's true character exposed under restaurant lighting. I turned off the presentation and faced the crowd, my smile never faltering. "I want to thank Michael for teaching me something incredibly valuable," I said, my voice clear and steady. "He taught me exactly how much I'm worth. And it's not this." I slipped my engagement ring off my finger and placed it gently on the table beside my wine glass. The small click it made seemed impossibly loud. "This wedding is canceled. I deserve someone who loves all of me, not someone who sees me as a problem to be solved." I picked up my purse, straightened my shoulders, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, chaos erupted. Voices raised in shock and anger, chairs scraping against the floor. Michael's desperate attempts to explain or deflect. But I didn't turn around. I didn't engage. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a scene or a confrontation. I simply left. 6 months later, I was 30 pounds lighter, not because someone had shamed me into it, but because I'd started taking care of myself for myself. I'd moved to a new apartment, gotten a promotion at the hospital, and started dating someone who thought I was beautiful exactly as I was. Michael had tried calling, texting, showing up at my workplace. I'd blocked everything, changed my number, made it impossible for him to reach me, because I'd learned something that night at the rehearsal dinner. I'd learned that the coldest, most devastating revenge isn't screaming or crying or begging for apologies. It's simply walking away from someone who never deserved you in the first place, and never looking back. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more empowering stories about self-worth and finding your true value. Like this video, if you believe everyone deserves to be loved completely, comment below with your thoughts on Sarah's decision, and share this with someone who needs to hear that they deserve better. Your engagement helps us create more content that celebrates real love and authentic relationships.